I'm on the hunt for the perfect fitting one-piece swimsuit for my curvy body, and I am here to share a bunch of tips with you. Let's get to it. I'm Madi with Madi Sews, and welcome back. So I've been doing a whole lot of swimsuit sewing, actually. A lot of sewing, a lot of swimming, just to kind of test out all of these different fabrics and pattern changes that I'm making. So to give you an idea of what I'm looking for, I'm actually looking for a one-piece swimsuit that I can get a pretty darn good fit for on my curvy body. Now, my bust measures in at a 44, my waist 35, and my hips are 49. So I'm pretty curvy, especially down at my bottom half. But something else that kind of complicates the fits of my garments is that I have a relatively narrow upper body. So my shoulders are narrow, but I do have a heavier bust. So I always have to take that into account. I chose to focus in on the Minute Maillot by Patterns for Pirates because it actually has a pretty extensive size range. Their sizes go from an extra small up to a 3X. So to give you an idea of the ranges for the bust, waist, and hips, so their size ranges for the bust goes from 30 inches up to 54 inches. The waist is 23.5 inches up to 50. And hips go from 33 inches all the way up to 58. So for me, this pattern has already made the sizing and grading and all of that stuff so much easier. I don't have to redraft any part of this pattern, which is definitely a plus for me. I also like that this pattern has a whole lot of different options. You can choose a high neckline, a mid neckline, or a low neckline, and then you have the same options for your bottom. You can do a low, high, or mid coverage for your backside, which is great because I like full coverage on my backside. Now you could easily do a lower back and a higher neckline for this. You just have to make changes to the actual elastic length. We'll get into that though. This is the first Minute Maillot that I actually made, and I'll put some pictures in over here for you to check it out. But I mean, honestly, I felt like this was a solid first go. I did choose the low neckline and the low back, you can see here, and then the lower, so more full coverage bottoms here. And I really do like the way the bottom turned out for me. I didn't mention this earlier, however, the pattern also has options to include a shelf bra or a shelf bra with cups in it. So I decided with this one that I was going to include the shelf bra. So you can see here, it's connected into the back. The instructions for this pattern are really good. They were really easy to follow. I didn't have any issues following them. They told you when to skip to another section, so I wasn't left guessing when I didn't want to put the little foam pads for the bra in my shelf bra. I tend not to like those because I'm really heavy up top, so I feel like when I have those little tiny padded foam things, you end up seeing the outline of them. To me, it's definitely not my preference. Although I do understand that some people really like to have those included for coverage issues when it comes to the nips. So this is one of the fabrics that I actually picked up from JOANN's. You know, you want to make sure it stretches 50% both horizontally and vertically. Now I'm going to make sure that I link to the fabrics that I use below in case you want to check them out. But this fabric itself is 90% rayon and 10% spandex, and it's a jersey knit. It has plenty of stretch in both directions, but it does have kind of that brushed feel to it. So I wasn't sure how that was going to end up in the swimming pool. This swimsuit does feel a little heavier and more substantive than my other swimsuits. That's not really a problem for me, but what I did notice was that it also took a whole lot longer to dry. So just keep that in mind. If you're picking up a jersey knit, in particular one made of rayon, you're gonna have to sit out in the sun a little longer. So if that's your thing, no problem. If you're not one of those people who likes to bake in the sun, just keep that in mind. I had mentioned that the instructions for this swimsuit were actually pretty clear. And it's interesting because they have you layer all of the pieces together. So at the shoulder points here, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 6 layers of fabric in at the shoulders here. And that's because I have that shelf bra, right? And so they have you sew across all of that fabric. And to me, this area feels really kind of bulky right here on the shoulder seams when it's on. I actually made adjustments for that in the next one that I'm going to talk to you about. And then another issue that I had, and this was primarily when I was in the water, was that this shelf bra right here just isn't supported enough. Honestly, it might as well not even be in this swimsuit because it didn't offer any support for me whatsoever. And I think that the biggest issue with that is that the elastic that this calls for is just way too long for me. So in my next one, I shortened it significantly. And then I also made some additional changes. This one has the back piece, so the entire, you can see, let me just flip this inside out. So you can see here, here's the shelf bra. It is sitting out on the outside of my lining and it's entirely separate and it connects in at the back because I have a low neckline. Now, if I had any of the other necklines that actually ended a little higher on the back, then this piece would have been entirely a separate bra. In concept, it's okay. But when I was in the water, because the elastic just wasn't doing its job, it was way too long, the shelf bra started floating up and you could see it poking through my neckline in the front when I was in the water, which was a little annoying. So this shelf bra definitely is a no-go for me as it is right here constructed. I did, however, like the way the shelf bra was constructed in the Sharon pattern that I made last time. And I'll just show you a quick picture of that swimsuit here. It was the first reversible one that kind of like inspired this series. Well, with the Sharon pattern, and it's right here. So with this pattern right here, what they actually have is a shelf bra that doesn't go all the way up into the shoulder seam, so it reduces that bulk, which I thought was super clever. And it's sewn into only the front, so you connect it to the side seams. It has the elastic around it, so there's really no chance of that shelf bra kind of floating up on you. And that is a technique that I brought forward into my second Minute Mayo swimsuit, which we'll get into here in a minute. And let me tell you, if listening to me talk about swimsuits and the changes that I made to get a good fit seems really daunting to you, make sure that you go and check out the Creative Hands Academy by Sirena Patterns, which actually teaches you how to master sewing with spandex to create a one-piece or a two-piece bikini and sew it up like a pro. I really do highly recommend it. I went through the class and it is top-notch. I'm going to put my affiliate link in the description box below so that way you can check it out. If you use my affiliate link, I get a small percentage of the sales that I use to put back into my sewing business. So thank you so much for using my link. Let's talk about elastic, because this swimsuit actually calls, well, all swimsuits, you need to have elastic if you want it to stay on your body where it's supposed to. But this pattern itself calls for you to cut the elastic and then you're really only stretching the elastic around the curves. So around this curve, around that curve, and then around the back of the swimsuit. And this actually varied from the Sharon swimsuit as well. In the Sharon swimsuit, you're kind of stretching that elastic equally around. And for this one, I felt like that was a really cool technique that I really enjoyed. So I only stretched it around the back ends and around those points. I did have a little issue with it though. And the issue is that I felt like the elastic was still too long. And because the elastic was too long, I felt like my straps were just not secure. When I was in the water, they would shift around. And at one point when I was swimming, I almost exposed myself. So it's definitely something that I took into consideration for the next one. And really, for the next one, what I tried doing was just significantly shortening the elastic that goes around this neck hole, and I started pulling it from higher up, like stretching that elastic, so that way it would work out. And I'll show you in my red polka dot one, so that way you can get a better idea for how that went. With all of that being said, I do feel like this is a pretty solid swimsuit. I've worn it several times, and it's definitely going to continue to get a lot of wear. For my second version of the Minute Maillot, I decided to make another reversible one. So this one is the red and white in the front, and then it's the black in the back. By the way, I think I forgot to tell you, on both of these swimsuits, the black lining fabric, or in this part, or in this one, the actual reversible side, I used another fabric that I picked up from JOANN's. And that one is a 90% polyester, 10% spandex, quick drying performance fabric. It has a good amount of stretch, and it really does dry more quickly than these other fabrics. This red and white fabric right here is actually a lyocell spandex. Lyocell spandex. 93% lyocell, 7% spandex, and it's just noted as a knit. It feels lighter than the other swimsuit. However, it also does dry much quicker than the jersey knit that I had used before. So I thought that these two fabrics overall were better choices than the jersey knit here. I forgot to mention this to you guys, but when I had this swimsuit on, especially after it had gotten wet, I noticed that there was a little bit of bagging in the torso area on both the front and the back. And so I went ahead and removed 3/4 of an inch from the pattern pieces on the torso for both the front and the back when I made this one. I did remove 3/4 of an inch off of the torso on this one, on both the front and the back. And when I removed it off the back, I made sure that I hit it on this curve right here where it was a little flatter, so that way I could remove the additional from that area and not below it, because I really didn't want this to get too close to my crack. As I mentioned earlier, I also changed the shelf bra. So this one you can see, and let me just flip it inside out. The shelf bra is enclosed inside my swimsuit. And I actually only used the front part of the shelf bra, and I attached it in at the side seams. I just attached it to my black fabric, basted it in on the sides, and then when I sewed the entire swimsuit together using the burrito method to make it reversible, it came together nicely. One thing to note though is that all of the elastics that I used for this swimsuit were shortened by 10%, with the exception of the shelf bra. And I actually shortened that one 20%. So that way it had to stretch more across my body, and it's far more supportive. So this one is definitely the win when it comes to the shelf bra. Let's talk elastics now, because at this point I've used 3 different elastics. In the Sharon swimsuit, which is this one right here, I actually use clear swim elastic right here. And honestly, it's okay. If it's the only thing that you have, I mean, it's gonna work for you. It is chlorine resistant, so if you're in the swimming pool a lot, it's not going to dissolve too quickly. However, it is pretty stiff, and it was a bit of a beast to sew through when it came to the top stitching. So I had to be very careful when I was doing all of my top stitching, actually, just to make sure that it didn't nest on me at the bottom. Also, with this elastic, what I noticed in the Sharon swimsuit was that if it wasn't pulled tight enough, you could see the waviness of the actual elastic through the fabric. Not exactly the best look, so something to keep in mind with that one. So for the shelf bra on this one, I actually decided to use a much wider elastic. So instead of the 1/4 inch that I used here, I used a 3/8 inch elastic. And this is actually just a braided elastic. It's a regular one, so it's not chlorine resistant. I'm not typically in a swimming pool ton, so I'm not too worried about that. But if you are, keep that in mind. You may want something that's chlorine resistant. The reason why I decided to go with this 3/8 inch is because one, it's wood I had in my stash, but also because you really do want something that's going to be wider at the bottom of your shelf bra to kind of like help support you. If I had a 1-inch elastic, I would have used that instead of this, to tell you the truth. This worked out nicely, but a wider elastic would provide you more support. So just keep that in mind. If you're really heavy up top like I am, you may want to use even a wider elastic than this 3/8. This elastic right here, this is a rubber swim elastic, and this is 3/8 inch. And honestly, this stuff feels like a straight up rubber band. It's chlorine resistant, so it's really good for swimsuits. I can't tell you how it performs yet because I haven't sewn it into a swimsuit and actually gone swimming with it yet. So when I do, I'll be sure to let you know how that elastic works out. And then the other elastic that I used was this one right here, which was a 1/4 inch. And this one has a whole lot of stretch, as you can see. This is just a regular braided elastic too. It's not chlorine resistant, but I did find that I liked this elastic a lot more around my armholes and my leg line. In this swimsuit, I used the 1/4 inch elastic around the neckline here, and honestly, I wish that I had used a wider elastic that was stretchy like this, because the thin elastic kind of like turns in while I'm wearing it. Not the biggest of issues, honestly, but you know, it's something to just keep in mind as we're moving forward in different swimsuits. And I really do like the finish that the 1/4 inch elastic provided around the leg holes. Now for this one, I used the clear elastic around the upper part here and my neckline. And well, it's like I said, the 1/4 inch elastic, this clear stuff right here is just, this is not my preferred method. It's so much more difficult to work with. I don't like the waviness that I gave my armholes. You can see here, hang on, let me show you here. You see how wavy that armhole is when it's stretched? That's something that I didn't actually get around my leg line here. You see that? The leg line looks so much cleaner than that armhole does. So I think that I'm going to continue to use this white elastic, and I'm going to give this clear swim elastic a break. When I showed you the snakeskin swimsuit, I had noted that I felt like the elastic was a little too long around the neckline, so I did go and shorten it. And actually what I ended up doing was I shortened it by an additional 10%, but then I started stretching it from all the way up here instead of lower along the curve. And I felt like that amount of stretch kind of brought those swim straps in and made them more secure, so that way they don't slip off of my shoulders, which is a definite plus. At some point, I would actually like to change the positioning of the actual straps. And hang on, let me just give you an idea, because I really like the way that the Sirena patterns was done, because it felt so secure. So this is the back piece for my Sharon swimsuit, and you can see here that this is the middle part, and the actual straps come in at an angle, right? So that way when it's on your body, it comes out like this to create that nice low shape. And honestly, I think that this shape created a much more supportive strap. Like the straps in my Sharon swimsuits right here feel so much more secure than any of these two. So at some point, I'd like to actually work on changing the positioning of the straps to make them a little more angled to provide just that little bit more of like security, non-slippage, someday. Overall, I really do feel like this swimsuit right here is by far the better swimsuit of the 2-minute maillots. And I really do like the fit on this. In fact, I like the fit so much that at this point, I'm gonna start hacking this swimsuit. You're gonna see more swimsuit hacks from me. But the very next video that I have is actually gonna show you how to make your own reversible swimsuits. So if you're interested in actually knowing how to make your own swimsuit reversible, check me out on Wednesday. So that's my review, along with the changes that I've made to the Minute Maillot to get a really great fit. If you enjoyed this video, I think you're gonna enjoy watching the Sharon swimsuit video that inspired this series. So check that out. And until next time, I sincerely hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye.